IVM.
I really enjoy driving, but I hate the Mumbai traffic. In fact, yesterday, you won't believe what happened. I banged into a taxi. No fault of my own. It was completely his fault. Hear me out, I'll explain. Written behind the taxi was, Kotak home loans now only at 6.5%. It was so unbelievable. Out of shock, I crashed into the taxi. I'm surprised people don't crash into his car every single day because of that. So guys, kripya dhyan rakhe when reading such things. Actually, I don't even mind paying the taxi driver for his repairs because I will be saving so much on the interest rates. Just visit www.kotak.com for more info or visit your nearest Kotak Mahindra branch today. Terms and conditions apply. Interest rate starting at 6.5% per annum.
This is Storytellers and Story Sellers live on tape. You're listening to Vineet Kanabar on the IVM Podcast Network. This has been Gaming Month. All October, we've talked to folks who are blazing trails in gaming. We spoke to Max Play and Techno Gamers. We spoke to Gaurav Agarwal from GameStop. And today, we are talking to two of the people at the top of global esports in India. For the uninitiated, global esports is putting India on the map, on the esports map, wherever they go. If you've paid attention to esports news in the past couple of weeks, they almost qualified for the Valorant Finals Championship, missing out by just a little bit. And I could tell you the story of how they missed out in what was a 14-all last round sort of situation, but they won hearts. And I'm so glad to be joined by Mohit Asrani and Dr. Rushindra Sinha from Global Esports. Guys, welcome to the show and congratulations for a fantastic showing at LCQ.
Thank you so much, Vineet, for having us over. It's a pleasure.
Yeah, thanks. It's been a good, interaction, and I hope this goes well. Looking forward to talk to you about gaming and the world of esports.
Yeah, everything we've done so far sounds a lot fancier when you say it, Vineet. So I like when you say it.
And you will hear me talk a lot in our next hour or so of chat. But before we get there, there's going to be a short break because we need ads to survive. We'll be back after these short messages talking to Global Esports about esports in India.
$100. That's all it takes to begin your journey with Bitcoin and Ethereum. No, really. With CoinSwitch, you can start investing in over 100 cryptocurrencies with just 100 rupees. On top of that, there are zero charges for deposits and withdrawals, so you can trade, buy, sell, however and whenever you want. All of this, plus their extremely intuitive interface, makes CoinSwitch the perfect app for beginners in the crypto space. But don't take my word for it. Just download CoinSwitch for free and try it out for yourself. If you'd like more information on cryptocurrencies, tune into a show about crypto with me, Rohan Joshi, my new adventure on IVM Podcasts. CoinSwitch, kuch to badlega.
And we're back on Storytellers and Story Sellers. We're talking to Mohit and Dr. Rushindra Sinha. I'm just going to keep saying that. It just feels amazing to say. I realized. Right? Let's start there, right? Like before we go anywhere else. And let's start there. Okay. How do you go from doctor to what is essentially like the GM of a sports team?
Right.
Like if you can tell us a quick sort of, ye kaise hua?
Okay, so long story short, I come from a family of doctors. There's 26 doctors in my family. So wow. I literally grew up in a hospital. I didn't know of any other career except for medicine. And in fact, when my parents even asked me after I got done with 12th, ke karna kya hai life mein? I was like, I don't know, doctor banunga, hospital chalaunga, aur kya karna kya hota hai? Like, aur kuch hota bhi hai kya option? Right. Like, I didn't even know of anything else. But I was always passionate about technology in general, and I always played video games. So that's something that was always happening alongside, but more on the hobby side of things. I mean, I didn't even know that could be a career, as I'm sure a lot of people, even now, don't think that playing video games can be a career. So eventually, I realized I was spending more time on the computer than in the hospital. And that's when I realized that thoda is pe focus karte hai instead of the medical side of things.
And I'm sure you're not regretting it at all.
Oh, absolutely not. Absolutely not. It's been just one hell of a roller coaster ride. I mean, aur kuch na sahi, I know I have stories for the rest of my life.
Love it. Mohit?
Yeah, so I'll tell you a bit of this story. While he was on his journey to become a doctor, I was engulfed and kind of inspired by this world of making films. And I'm actually a director and a filmmaker, by profession. Right. and a gamer by design, as you can say. So we started playing, video games when we were really young. I think probably we were like 3 years old, and we know each other since 25 years. And I think it was always about, like we grew up in the same neighborhood, went to the same school, went to the same cyber cafes, and it was always about talking about this world that could be, just like sports, right? You could play video games, make a career out of it, and probably make a, good living for the rest of your life. And that was our upbringing. But for me, it was always, when you have those game trailers or game cinematics that they introduce right before they, launch a game, I should be like, yeah, if there's one job to kind of just make those videos, that should be something that I want to, kind of get into. So we didn't know what that thing was called, very early on. So we started making, films using games and, started telling stories. And later, I did end up studying science, but because it was like there was no opportunity and I didn't know what much to do. I come from a background of where my family is very much oriented into the education space, and all of them have been like teachers, professors, principals of college, and my dad has a PhD, my grandfather has a PhD in economics, and so it was always that pressure about education, right? And we were really not good at it. So there was not too many opportunities, I think, that time to, go full-time into gaming. I thought, I would devote all my time to becoming a game designer or a game something to just so that I can play video games for the rest of my life, right? And that didn't work out because there were like diplomas and, there was like short courses, but there was no like a degree. So my parents were always of the opinion that, do get a degree in something and then figure out whatever you want to do in life. It just so happened that when I did a degree called, Bachelor's of Mass Media, I fell in love with this thing called, filmmaking. And because we're gamers, editing softwares and all this came very naturally because it's like, okay, if it's on the computer, I can figure it out. And that's how pretty much we, began. And then one film, we started making indie films. The indie films started getting some accolades, started figuring out, okay, this is a career that I can pursue. And all along, while he was on his doctor's journey, I was, making films and working in the Bollywood film industry, learning how to pretty much become a director. We were, I think, that time dreaming about this company called Global Esport that didn't exist.
Love it. Before we talk about Global, you both made a film that won at Tribeca.
Yes.
Then it casually just like hum Tribeca mein hum film.
Okay, so this story, I'd like to kind of narrate it the same way it happened. So, I never got a chance to go to film school because, it was always very expensive. And that time, the funds, I didn't have enough funds to make it happen. So we had this conversation, when I graduated from college. It's like, what should I do? Like, I want to learn how to make films, but I don't have any money to go to a film school or figure it out. So he's like, you know what? Just, Google is your best friend. Just go there, learn the theory part. And they're like, boss, we are lucky to be in Bombay, the land of Bollywood. Figure it out, get some job, go there and learn. And that's exactly what I did, It took me 8 months to crack my first film job as the last junior most assistant on a film set. It was a dream come true. But what I did was, I realized very early on that you need to be making your own projects because as a producer, no one will give you the next job, right? You need to have some showreel, some kind of a product or a film that you need to showcase. So there was this one film that we were working on, which was like a 45-day schedule with, Boman Irani, Arshad Varsi, Aditi Rao Hedri and all of that. And this was a little later time in my career, right? And I was like, by that time, I'd grinded from like a very junior most assistant director to a first assistant. And I still remember there were 5 days of the shoot left. So like the climax and 2 songs. And when actors don't give you the date and they and then 2 months of the film schedule is, disrupted. That's exactly what happened during this time, right? So the producer comes and talks to me. He's like, I think, you need to find some other job for the 2 months because we can't really afford your salary. So I'm like, sir, technically you're firing me, right? So he's like, yeah, just go do whatever you have to and, come back and we'll figure it out. And I remember calling him, just the moment I walked out, I'm like, bro, I think I just got fired from my job. Let's do something kick-ass and, probably make some film that's going to change the course of our lives. And that was the film that we made. It was an interactive music film that we made for an artist called Aloe Black. And that won at the Tribeca Film Festival. So having like a signed invitation letter by Robert De Niro and getting like our visas, like my visa in like 2 hours from the airport was like a dream come true. And we won like $10,000 for it. So it was like a life-changing experience. It pretty much put me on the map as a director. And we were just kids working together to make something so that we can reach out to more people.
I love it, man. I love both your stories. I love the drive. I think that's what comes through, right?
For us, it's always, every project we've done, it's primarily been about passion. Everything that we have done, it has come from passion, and especially when we talk about the world of video games, right? So as Mohit said, we started playing video games at a very young age. In fact, his elder brother, was the one who introduced us to the LAN cafe culture,
Right.
and we played our first tournament at the age of 11 in 2001.
Oh, wow.
And this was a Counter-Strike tournament, and we were like the Kacha Limbos at that time in the cafe, and we would usually get our ass kicked, and no one would pick us in their team because they were all an older crowd and the high-end teenagers. So we started playing and practicing together, alag se, and we made our own team, and we eventually climbed up the ladder and started competing in these tournaments and won at that event. And that was kind of like our first LAN tournament that we won. From Counter-Strike, we moved on to Warcraft and started playing online games. That's when Dota came into the picture. And then from there, we moved on to online games like Ragnarok Online, which is very similar to World of Warcraft. And we climbed up the ladder, and there came a point where we were amongst the highest ranked players in the server in India. So we
Right.
started emailing the developers, the publishers, recommending changes that we would like in the server. Since we are playing at the highest tier, we said, no, why don't you add these features? Yeah, ye balance karke nikal do. But I'm sure they get millions of such emails every day because we didn't get a reply to any of them. So we decided to take matters into our own hands and kind of reverse engineered the game. And I worked with a few programmers that I knew and kind of went, as he said, Google was our best friend, and went through online tutorials and forums and kind of learned how to build our own version of that game. And then 18 months later, when we launched, it just so happens that there were a lot of people that wanted the same changes that we did,
Right.
because when we launched, our servers crashed because there were so many people trying to enter.
Right.
And it's a good problem to have, but a problem nonetheless. We eventually figured out and upgraded our servers. And for 2 years, we were the number one private game server in the world. Now, of course, there are hundreds of thousands of indie game studios. But at that time, in 2007, 2008, 2009, those years, there weren't as many options. And again, this was something that we did on the side, while we were in school, while we were in college, as a side project. And then I got into med school, he got into filmmaking, and we realized we weren't able to commit enough time. And just as that happened, we got an acquisition offer from an Australian company. So we sold off our server, and that kind of became our first exit in the gaming space. And all
Right.
this was just as we were starting on our professional career. We were both 18 at the time.
Right.
So it was
That's
fun to
insane,
have that
man.
happen.
I mean, someone should make a movie about that. Right? Like, I'm not even joking, right? You make a film like, cliched films like a Fukre or something, right? You make this film.
Let me
You
make a
know,
call. Hello, Netflix.
But I'm not even joking, guys. And you make this film. You make this film of two enterprising young Indian boys one from like a PhD background, one from a medical or doctoral background, 26 doctors in the family, right? Coming together and saying, guys, you know what? We like playing video games, but we're not like, the people who are spending my dad's well-earned money at Reliance WebWorld. We're fucking enterprising kids, man. So we'll do what we want, and then we make an exit before 18. You make this film, right? This is the. I'm not even kidding.
I mean, if you put it that way, it honestly sounds
think
like a
I-
good pitch. It doesn't sound like our lives anymore.
No, but the
I
fun
don't
part
make
is,
bad
right, our
pitches, my
journey
friend.
really started and went on to grow from there. Like, for us, the reason we don't even look at that as much of an achievement, because that's really where our journey started. This was a side
Of course,
project, right?
of course.
Because after that, as Mohit said, we won the Tribeca Film Festival, and we also won the Beijing Film Festival, where in fact
Right.
he gave me an opportunity as an actor. So I was plastered on Sprite hoardings in China because we won the Beijing Film Festival.
And that was the first ever ad film technically that I had made after, majoring in advertising in, Bachelors of Mass Media. And that was the thing. The whole concept for us was, how can we leverage what we have, use our resources, and make something happen. That was always the conversation. That was always the idea, whether it's a film, whether it's our own game server, whether it's Global Esports, or whether it's something that we want to do or we are doing in the NFT space. It's always been about that, right? How do we take everything you have right now accessible to you and create something that no one has ever thought? Those combination of ideas is what, has sparked our journey. And yeah, like, it didn't feel like a startup that time, when we created our game server, because if you tell someone in a normal language, it's like, you made a game server.
Iska kya matlab hota hai? I
So
don't know
what?
this is.
So what, right?
So like in conversation, it's like, we like playing this game and we wanted changes, but the people that made the game didn't want to make those changes, so we made our own game. So
And that's something that's only possible in gaming, right? You can't go to a filmmaker and be like, bro, ye wala scene aisa thoda change kar do na. Like off, man.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Right, exactly.
Right.
But that's what we love about gaming and in general content, because it's so iterative. Like, we can keep getting better at it. We can keep adding features, removing features, making changes, upgrading it. There's so much that can happen, and I think kind of that's what we've been doing in our lives as well. Because while I was in med school, this is what I spent most of my time doing, right? So there was a time that I was spending more time on the computer than in the hospital. And that's when I knew I wanted to do something in the tech space, not necessarily gaming as such, but more in the tech space. So as soon as I got done with med school, I ran away to San Francisco and I was staying in this place called the Hacker House, which was just a collection of people like me who had come to Silicon Valley to live out their dream of becoming the next Mark Zuckerberg or Steve Jobs or whatever wild dream that they had. And I would, the people that were living in that house were working at Microsoft, Lyft, Uber, Dropbox, Google, Apple. A lot of them had their own startups. And just being part of that startup ecosystem and culture gave me such a first-hand experience into what that world was like. I got to work with a lot of startups and then eventually got together with a few friends, moved to Los Angeles, and we started our own social media company. So that was a pretty cool experience as well. And parallel to, while all this was happening,
Yeah, I
Mohit was
was
pursuing his filmmaking journey.
So that the whole Tribeca Film Festival happened, and then I got a chance to learn a lot on the film festival circuit, see how things goes, and now coming back to advertising because I thought I had a strong affinity to telling stories in 60 seconds, like 30 seconds, and understanding what goes on to working with brands and how you bring about their vision to sell the products or some kind of a value that they want to contribute to someone's lives, right? So came back. Leo Burnett that time was starting their in-house production house, right? Called Greenhouse. And it was all about them finding someone who can be the person who can, create their show reel or build their work to that point where it becomes a studio. So it started off with, just us getting briefs for like 50,000 rupees of projects. And then we started working on them. And again, working with our resources, limited, funds, but scale and vision was always bigger. So one film getting some kind of a recognition, winning some accolades there, the clients becoming happy, giving us more budgets. And when I left from there, I'd worked with more than 300 brands and got the production house to do. Now they don't touch any project which is less than 5 to 10 CR. So it pretty much became an iconic, kind of a moment for them where it was just part of Leo Burnett, and then Prodigious, kind of Publicis Group made it Prodigious India, which is
Of course.
now, recognized production house in India and all across the globe. So it was all about, but when we were in this journey on Parallels, right, there was never a time that we were not talking about video games or films in games or using games to create something. I think the reason why we love games so much is because we've been kind of inspired since we were kids, and I think our lives have become pretty much like a game only. Like we feel that if we work hard enough and grind and work in the right amount of way and put some enough time to develop our skill and our personal lives, you pretty much level up like you level up in a game, right? And if we need to go out there and take over the world or defeat the ultimate boss, we need to get stronger, and we need a team, and we need to build that army. And I think everything that we're doing is going one step closer towards making that dream happen, right?
Yeah, I think it was a combination of us treating our real world like a video game and actually discussing all the ideas and the concepts that we had and turning them into a reality. Like we would do that while we were playing. So while he was working at Leo Burnett and doing hundreds of commercials, I was in Silicon Valley working on my social media startup, and then I exited that in 2015. I wanted to get more formalized in the programming sense because I had my professional background only was medicine, right? Everything I'd learned in programming was online through tutorials. So I went to General Assembly and they had like a hardcore programming school. I attended that, got certified in programming so that I could do web development, app, iOS, Android programming. I had quite a few projects that I did, startups that I released. Then I wanted to get more formal education on the entrepreneurial side of things. So I went to Stanford Graduate School of Business and did like their innovative leadership program and got done with that in 2017. And that's when I came back to Bombay and wanted to look at opportunities, right? Because now I had startup experience, I had a medical degree, I had tech knowledge, and I had this certification from Stanford, that now I'm ready to be an entrepreneur. So I came back to Bombay looking for my startup idea. And just as I was doing that, they announced TI7, which was the International 7, a $25 million Dota 2 championship.
Right.
So I remember I called up Mohit and I was like, dude, we used to play Dota back in the day and तभी 5-10 हजार रुपए के लिए खेलते थे. अभी 200 crore का event हो रहा है. Like, do you think if you would have continued playing, we'd be on stage? So we laughed it off because, we never took gaming as a career as seriously because it was always something we did on the side. But one thing that we knew was we knew how to capitalize on opportunity and turn this into something more. So we are like,
Right.
look, we may not be able to play the game ourselves, but I'm sure we can look at the void that's there in the industry right now and create opportunities for others. So that's really where global esports started, and that's where our journey began. And we started
Let me back up right here because I think
Perfect.
there's an important setup I want to do before you talk about
Perfect.
setting up global, right? Because
Yeah.
what I'm hearing from you guys, and it's super exciting to first hear it with the passion with which you guys have done it, right? Second, there is a humility to learning that you guys really seem to have, right? आपने 5 साल medical college किया होगा.
Yeah, 6 years. Yeah.
6 years, right? 6 years of medical college, then going back and being like, no, I need to learn programming. Then saying, okay, now I need to go to GSB because there are skills that are not present here.
Yeah.
Sure, I'm a doctor. Sure, I might have, an entire career if I choose to do that. But this is my passion. But I'm not like a blind guy running after my passion. I'm bloody organized, right? This is what I need. This is what I need. These are the skills that I need, right? On the other side, Mohit is learning how to build a business that he's passionate about as well, right? So it's not just filmmaking कि अरे नहीं अभी मैं first AD इधर था, मैं इधर first AD रहूँगा, अब मैं उधर first AD रहूँगा. You're getting the business skills as well, right? You're building up a business, you're growing and scaling an entire production house for a global major agency as well, right? No small feat there, right? To me, it feels like you're doing the grind, literally doing the grind, right? You're okay, now I need my druid skills, and now I need my mage skills, and now I need my warrior skills, and now I need my whatever defense skills. And I'm building it up, and the team is coming together, right? I think that's such an important aspect of your story that I feel everyone should learn from, right? That it's not enough to sit around and want things, right? Neither is it enough to sit around and be like, मुझे ये करना है, so I will do entry level jobs of this for 10 years in my life. Right?
Right.
You have to stage yourself in growth, right? You have to look at, okay, what am I doing now? What am I doing 6 months later? And how is it getting me to scale up and level up? And finally, you're looking at opportunities. I think that's the most important part. You're not resting on your laurels and being like, okay, now I've done, my time with a company interning somewhere, and now I've done, a film that has done this much, these many rounds at festivals, etc. You're looking at opportunities. You're like, bro, filmmaking, love it. Startups, love it. Passion, gaming, opportunity, gaming mein kahan pe hai? And that's where I think there's so much to learn from this journey, right? Like I think we talk about entrepreneurs in e-commerce or app development or wherever else. Well, look at this, and this is an entrepreneurial journey that Gen Zs or millennials will relate to, right? Because you're not just chasing your passion, you're hunting your passion down with like, I would say in hindsight at least, what feels like laser precision, right?
So
Ye karna hai.
in our eyes, for us, learning has always been a very important aspect. That's something growing up, my dad was very, very particular about. He was like, the world is divided into two kinds of people: learners and non-learners. You need to decide which one you fall under, because the day you stop learning is the day you stop earning. Is if you really want to keep growing, you need to keep learning, you need to keep leveling up. That's the approach that we always had. We realized that, we need to keep learning. And that's, again, being gamers, adding that gaming element to our real life was really epic, because we always look at everything we're doing as quests and achievements, like in a game where, for example, getting through med school, that was a quest that I had to do. Whether I like doing it or not, it was more about discipline, right? If I complete this quest, I can move on to the next quest. And then I got those skills, and then the next skills, and the next set of skills. For example, right now, more than me, we're both enrolled at UCI's online program for the esports. They've launched a esports program, which is the University of California, Irvine. And we've been in the space for more than 5 years. We played professionally as well. There's absolutely no reason that we need to be doing an entry-level program released by UCI, because there are other universities that are, in fact, that we are consulting with for their curriculum for esports. But we still want to learn and understand things that we don't know from people that know better than us, because that's always been our belief. When we meet people that know more than us, we can learn so much from them. And I believe you can learn something from everyone. I think anyone that has an excuse or uses the excuse that they don't know is absolutely rubbish. Because I didn't know programming, I learned it online. I didn't know business, we learned it. Like, you learn by doing, and there are no excuses to it. Google, as we said, your best friend. Start Googling. If you don't find resources online, you'll find someone else online who's done it. Chase them and learn from them.
I love it. I love it. On that note, I'm going to go into our mid-episode break. On our way back from the break, we will talk about Global, how you started, what the most recent milestone means, and what's the future for you guys, right? Don't go anywhere. This is a riveting chat with Mohit and Dr. Rishindra Sinha. We'll be back. That's the last time I do that, I promise. We'll be back right after these messages. I have been fascinated with the field of AI for quite some time now. As an advertiser, you use the power of AI in many amazing and unique ways. So it's always a major plus to know how AI works and the things it can accomplish. Luckily, Intel's Digital Readiness Program is here to empower everyone with skill sets, mindsets, and tool sets to use in an AI-fueled world. So you can be ready to develop AI for even sports if you want to. As part of Intel's AI for Youth program, Intel has been working with the CBSE, the Ministry of Education, and the Government of India to empower today's youth to build social impact solutions while demystifying what AI is. How do you take advantage of this? Purchase an Intel Core-powered PC and you get free access to 80 plus hours of immersive and hands-on training about AI. On completion of the program, along with a certificate, you get access to AI toolsets to try and put what you learned to good use. So don't wait. Log on to futurebanaowonderful.intel.com. Future Banao Wonderful by bringing home an Intel-powered PC. And we're back. This is Storytellers and Story Sellers. I'm Vineet Kanabar. We're talking to Mohit and Rishi from Global Esports. Before the episode, we were talking about how the two of them have always treated pretty much everything in their life as a quest, as a gaming quest, right? And never shied away from learning, never shied away from going towards what they're passionate about, but with a very methodical sort of learning approach and taking the learnings from things that they're doing that may not be relevant to what they eventually want to do, right? And that's something that I truly, truly believe very few people do, right? A lot of people look at what they're doing today as, ye mujhe nahi karna hai yaar. I don't want to do an account servicing job. Ye mujhe nahi karna hai. This is not what I eventually want to do, right? But it is what you're doing today and you must take your learnings from it. And look where it got Mohit and Rishi. Let's dial back. 2017, you're back in India. You're looking at the space and the two of you decide to start Global. Tell us that story, and then we'll build up to LCQ and the future.
I wish it was that easy to point out. We decided to start Global Esports. I think it took years of our friendship and discussions and ideas, and like you said, the passion to really go into and create something. Like, I can share a bit of my perspective, because for me it was, I was working at this a production house that I was setting up and building, understanding brand briefs, figuring out how we can get in more revenue, figuring how we can get projections so that everything that we're doing in this production unit is sustainable, and understanding the content side of things and how media works on a bigger scale, right? And kind of imagining if you had to build the Disney in today's world, what would it take? Not just from making one film, but creating the entire ecosystem of that. But still, my days, would be there working in that universe, and then the nights would be dedicated to games. It was only about gaming at night, and that's how we would connect. Because I'd be like, I've had a long day. I just want to sit and play a few video games, and we would meet at this place, which is still our mecca, you can say. So, Rishi's hospital. If you can tell a little bit about the story.
In this part, so thankfully my parents have always been very supportive of my career, because they've seen how, as you rightly said, how laser focused that we have been on everything that we do, and we're not just running around aimlessly and headlessly, right? We have a certain strategy, and there's a method to this madness, even though the other people may not see it this way. So thankfully they supported us. So when we were starting off, we kind of hijacked the garage in my parents' hospital and converted that into our den. So that's really where it started. So we joke around, we're one of those startups that came out of a garage as well.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
It's a cliche, but that's how it happened. So from my perspective, he was working his day job, figuring out things in the hospital, managing on that, working on what the next startup would be. I was working, filming some projects, working in the whole advertising space, figuring how, brands are, what they're, looking for the next big idea, and how they're kind of integrating their ideas and products into films and so on and so forth. And in the middle of all of that, there's TI, that happened. And the conversation was just like, oh, let's watch TI. It was just an event that we wanted to
See together.
yeah, it was not even something. And then from seeing, it's like, okay, you know what? Why don't we call our friends? And I'm like, okay, let's call. So we made a few calls, and there were, I think, 10, 15 who answered
Yeah,
in
so
the start.
it started off just by like us wanting to watch the game together. And yeah, as any cricket World Cup finals or football, we're like, chal saath mein dekhte, we watch all the matches together. Let's watch it together. So he said, "Tika, let's invite a few of our friends. A lot of them still play the game." We're like, let's get the old gang back together. Anyway, I've been in US for such a long time. Let's catch up, it'll be really cool. So we created a WhatsApp group, started adding friends, and they had a lot of friends that still played the game. And they kept adding more people to the WhatsApp group, people who were interested in watching the finals together. And all of a sudden, from just a couple of friends wanting to watch together, the group was almost like 40, 50 people big. And I was like, wait, but this is way too many people to host at my house. Like, I'm not turning this into a house party, right? We just wanted to watch the game. It was supposed to be just friends ordering pizza and watching the game.
Right.
And you're like, okay, if you're like 40, 50 people, let's find another location. So that's when Mohit was like, wait, there are so many sports bars all around Bombay that, have all these match showcases for cricket and football. Let's just see if one of them would let us do it for Dota. So we went ahead on our quest and started talking to every sports bar that we could find in Bombay. And as you would expect, every single one of them had a massive question mark on their face because they're like, why would you want to watch video games in our bar on a Saturday night and not allow anyone else to watch a match or do something else? So they said, no, sorry, it's the busiest night of the week. No way we're letting you hijack our bar to watch video games. And that's what happened. And then finally, out of the blue in Bandra, they agreed and they said, you know what, our indoor section will cordon it off for you. Only you guys will be here, no one else. You all can watch the game, have fun, enjoy. But we need a minimum guarantee of 100 people.
Oh shit.
So we're like, okay, wait, like this just leveled up, right? We wanted to just watch with like 10 people and we're already up to 50 and now they want a minimum guarantee of 100. So we're like, okay, let's figure this out. So used all the tech skills that I had and put together an online payment gateway, and we put together a website really quickly that, we're hosting this event. And okay, so to give you reference to context, we had this conversation on Monday for a match that was happening on Saturday. The website went live Wednesday night at 9 p.m. We put the website live and we shared the link in all the Dota communities all across. By Thursday morning, we had more than 250 RSVPs.
Wow.
And this is including creating a logo, coming up with a name and everything that both of us just sat and did. Like literally it was an idea that we were working because every next day also we had to go back to work.
Yeah, we had our day jobs as well, right?
Yeah,
this was a game that we wanted to watch together. Like it started off with just wanting to watch a game on a weekend. Right, to us suddenly doing this, and we had 250 people RSVP, and we were like, okay, great, that's awesome. And then Red Bull reached out to us, and they're like, we'd love to be part of this. And then a few other brands got on board, and some brands were like, we want to have a merchandise stall because you have 250 gamers that are going to be there at this offline event. And then there was a local cafe that came and said, we'll set up a 1v1 booth over there so people can test out and play the game between the matches. And all of a sudden, by Friday, the day before the event, we had like 250 people attending. We had vendor booths. We had merchandise stalls. We had a social media team that was working on this. And all of a sudden, it was an event that everyone in the gaming space was talking about.
Suddenly you have a business.
Yeah. And we were like, wait, ye kaise hua?
And we kind of, because we had everyday shoots going on, we did like some basic lighting, captured the event also, not knowing what, value that footage would have. We just wanted to document everything that we were, kind of creating so that every step that we take towards our destination is, kind of documented and captured, and also gives us that kind of reference point of, how we could kind of use that footage later on and tell the story. Like you said, if someday
absolutely. So like, we're really content heavy, and Mohit with his filmmaking background used everything that he knew from filmmaking to capture the entire event. I do a lot of editing. So a lot of the movies that Mohit has done, I edit. So he sends the footage to me and I do the editing. So we edited this, and for us, the event got over Saturday night or Sunday morning rather at 6 a.m. and that was it.
Yeah, Monday morning we were back to work, and then we started getting emails. It's like, 1 second, people were interesting. The question was, what is next? And the funny thing is, we didn't know what was next. It was just an idea, a thought, a thing that just led from conversations, and we went out there and executed it. And that was Global Esports.
That's what I want to ask you about, right? Like, how do you go from what is essentially a fan community, right? You're like, we want to get fans together, like-minded people, enjoy the same things. It's like when I was growing up in Nagpur, we would be like, bro, we like a certain kind of music. We want to get 20, 30 people together and play some music, or get them together and do a small gig somewhere. And suddenly you're like, hey, this seems like much bigger than what it was, right?
Yep.
How did you figure out what was next? Like, was there some kind of mentorship? Was there someone who came in and said, hey, maybe you could do it like this? Or did you just look at what was happening around the world and start figuring it out yourself? And I want you to build up to where you are right now, right? Because in my head and from the outsider's perspective, there are a few milestones that come in, right? Like, how do you go from a fan community now to a business? How do you go from a business to a team to now competing globally? It's like, there's leveling up. How did you do that? Like, how did you figure out what's next?
So for us, honestly, it was a very natural progression. As Mohit was saying, for us, it just started off as that one event that we wanted to do. And that event went off so well. We were like, yeah, done and dusted. We're happy. We can go back to our lives and move on. And then we started getting a flood of emails and phone calls from other brands saying that, hey, you guys did this for the Dota 2 Championship. Will you all be doing it for the CSGO Majors? Will you all be hosting it for the Overwatch World Cup? And you're like, wait, there's a demand for this? Like, people want us to host more such events? Wow, awesome. Let's do it. So we started hosting more such isolated events, and we had brands that we partnered with. And at that time, we were playing a lot of Overwatch ourselves, which was the game that was really blowing up, which was like an advanced version of Counter-Strike. We started competing in that game, and I started getting really good at that game and climbing up the ladder. And I got really in tune with the esports community of Overwatch.
Right.
And there was an event that was happening in Pune, and one of the teams needed a stand-in. So since I was fairly high ranked on the ladder, they reached out to me and they said, oh, we're playing this tournament. Would you want to come in as a stand-in player? Because one of our teammates may not be able to come. And I was like, yeah, sure. Like, hell yeah. I've played and competed before, and I would absolutely love the chance to compete again and play. And Mohit came along with me. We went to Pune and we competed along with this team. And it was just, it brought our childhood back. Like, everything that we had imagined doing since we were children came back, and we were like, okay, I think we know what we need to do. Let's see what we can build around this space. And it just so happens a couple of days after the event, the team that I was playing with called me up and they were like, oh, by the way, we are going to disband because the sponsor that was the Cyber Cafe in Chennai is shutting down. So we'll no longer have a sponsor. So I don't think we're going to be able to compete anymore. But it was fun playing that one tournament with you. And I was like, wait. Don't disband. What was the Cyber Cafe providing in terms of sponsorship? Like, let us do it. We have this event company that we do, where we do these small gaming events. You all can, we will also sponsor you, and then you all can promote our events. And that's really how it started. And then they didn't have a name, so they took over our name, Global Esports, where we were, the name under which we were hosting these events. And we got them a coach, we got them whatever support that they needed, the peripherals. We were personally helping them out and, kind of working with their training schedule. And that's how the team started. And they started getting better at the game and competing to the point where they grew on to be the number one team in the country. Right. And that's what gave us exposure to the international scene, because they started competing in international tournaments, and that gave us exposure to the scene in Singapore. And similarly, we had a team in Singapore that approached us and said, we love what you did with this team in India. Can you guys help us out as well? Right. So repeated the entire cycle with this team in Singapore. The team in Singapore a few months later started to compete at the international level, grew on to be one of the top teams in Asia. And that gave us exposure to South Korea. And when we got exposure to South Korea, we were like, this is the mecca of esports. Like, this is where esports started. So we have to do something here. So we set up a team in South Korea. We had an Overwatch team and a Fortnite team in South Korea with our coaches, our support staff. And it was scaling to the point that we had about 20-25 people that were employed in Korea working for Global Esports full time. And this was a time when even both of us weren't full-time.
Yeah, I was just going to say, this is not the time where we had quit our day jobs. This is still,
You're still doing this part-time.
You're still doing it part-time. Right.
So I would spend the day in the hospital while he would spend his days at Leo Burnett. And then we would reconvene in the evening after our day jobs and then work on this all night long.
And how did you fund it around this time?
So a lot of the funding came initially from the events that we were hosting, and then we were personally
whatever
funding.
we could kind of gather and put.
It wasn't too much because it was just teams that we were supporting to begin with. There wasn't really any boot camp or facility. Right. Until the Korean teams happened, and then things got serious. And then in Korea, we both flew down to Korea and we set up a boot camp over there. So by now you would know the people that we are. Everything we do at scale and we go all out. So we picked up a 3-storied building in Korea, and we had one floor for Overwatch, we had one floor for Fortnite, and we had one floor for our support staff and where everyone was living. And there's about 25 people housed over there.
And this is in Seoul?
Yeah, this is in Seoul.
Man, I should have known this. I've been to Seoul multiple times. I would have loved to go visit.
Oh wow.
Next time I'm there,
next visit,
Yeah, that
possibly.
would have
100%.
been amazing. So, so suddenly that's when we were like, okay, we have a boot camp in South Korea. We have players who are competing at an international level. I think we have a company. It's time to register, and that is
Right.
actually when we registered our company.
Right.
Till then, we were just like doing it as a side, as one of our other hobby projects, right? As the server or the Tribeca Film Festival, the Beijing Film Festival, as every other project we've done, it was something we were doing on the side while we were trying to figure out what we really wanted to do. And slowly it went from there to becoming the thing that we really wanted to do. And fast forward from there, our Korean teams won the Korean Open second and third place. Then we were one of the only 3 Asian teams to be invited to the Australian Open, which
Right.
is the Grand Slam tennis tournament. So on one tennis court was the men's finals, Nadal versus Djokovic, and on the other tennis court was a $1 million Fortnite championship, where Global Esports was competing.
Beautiful. Beautiful. Let me ask you this.
Yeah.
When all of this was happening, right? How were attitudes changing in India around what you were doing? Like, tell me a little bit about that, right? Because
So surprisingly, very few people in India even knew what we were doing, because
Yeah.
all our
Right.
teams, everything that we were doing was outside of India. Like we had teams and we were dominating in Singapore, in South Korea, and we had our players that were going and competing in the Australia Open in Melbourne. So we spent more time outside of India than in India. Like we were literally
Right.
traveling across the globe making this happen. And that's when we started to scale things up, right? Because our Fortnite team started doing really well. We broke the Fortnite world record at the Fortnite World Cup qualifiers, and we became the team that had the highest score in the history of Fortnite. And that
Right.
suddenly started getting us a lot of eyeballs. While we were doing that, our Overwatch team became the only undefeated team that season in Asia, where our score was 10-0, where we didn't drop a single game throughout the season. And that was really, really good for us in Overwatch as well, because from there we went on to manage Team India as well as Team Singapore for the Overwatch World Cup in 2019. And that's also around that time where we raised our seed round of funding from our investors.
love it, man. I
Yeah,
mean,
but to
wow,
come back to your
that's a great
question, the
story.
perspective did, was not what it is now, and possibly what it's going to take some time to change, because it was still something so new, and even today it is very new, because parents or children still don't have an idea what the scale of what this opportunity can be, of if you really dedicate your time to play video games full time, you can actually make a career out of it. It was so new that the old assumptions and thoughts and notions about gaming being like gambling. Oh my god, my child is getting so much money, is it legal, XYZ things have still been around as a perception in India, specifically for a long time. So our goal was to kind of learn from what's happening in the mature markets on a global level, take those learnings, come back to India and kind of start on that front, where we become kind of those people where you go to set up the things, right, where someone comes to you and asks you, okay, this is what you need to do, and we help raise awareness, educate people, and give them the right direction in what they need to do to make it happen. And that kind of happened with us also, right? I mean, when I had to quit my job at Leo Burnett, I think my parents also for a bit had a little bit unsurety, right? Okay, is this guy going to be okay? Startup, this, that. He loves playing video games. All his life, he's been doing that. What if these guys are onto something that might just be, another hobby project that, one at something? And then what if it doesn't ever become that startup or a business? So I think there was some kind of convincing that needed, but it just was very lucky time that we, put in all our efforts when we wanted to create this thing. So when I left my job, in fact, the day that I left working at the production house, I think we did 11 commercials that month. So
Right.
the amount of work that I would have done, probably for 6 months and earned that much, I think it kind of happened in like a month. So my parents were like very happy, and they got that confidence that, okay, if these guys are putting everything that they got into it, and they believe in the dream and they're ready to do whatever it takes, then what are we going to say?
Yeah, so to give you a little backstory on what Mohit said, when he wanted to quit his job, his parents are like, are you sure? Because this is your only primary source of income right now. We want to support your startup, but if you quit, how are you going to manage things financially? So we went back to the drawing board and we were like, okay, let's figure this out. And we actually did the math. We're like, okay, this is what you're getting paid per month. So if you're going to dedicate 6 months of time to this startup, this is how much you would need to make. And we actually, in that 1 month, we went out and got enough freelance projects that covered the amount for the next 6 months for us to sustain ourselves without having to do any other work. So we were fine.
Beautiful. Like I said, laser focused, methodical, know what we want to do, love it, man. Absolutely love it. I think the film should have 3 parts. Right? First is till how far you come to found it, then the story now, and then the story for the future. We should definitely do this.
Damn. I think the laser focus, it must be laser focus for you in that perspective, but for us, we are very objective oriented as gamers, right? If you even meet us in game, we are very competitive even today. We are very much of those guys who like to work with a team, whether it's like 100 people or 200 people. We know now because we played multiple video games that if we say a certain thing and if that adds value and if a kind of a community can echo with it, then they'll support you and follow you with that vision. And that's what I think everything that we've been doing is leading us towards that, right?
This also goes back into what Jane McGonigal says in her book, that that she would rather hire a World of Warcraft guild leader than a Harvard MBA. Because that World of Warcraft guild leader has spent more time in his life managing people in the game, albeit, than a Harvard MBA has spent managing people at a workplace. And, probably at a larger scale because of the number of people you have to manage when you're playing a video game at that level.
So I hope more and more people think like Jane McGonigal as soon as possible. Let me ask you this, guys. I mean, I've loved getting to know your story so far, right? This is the part where I ask you for Gyan.
Right.
I mean, you're part of a very rarefied set of people who are doing what you're doing, right? And to add to that, you're doing it really well.
Thank you.
Thank you.
What have been the things that you've learned on the job, right? Like I said before we started talking, I think I draw comparisons between managing an esports team and like managing CSK, right? Or managing Manchester United for that matter, right? It is a full-fledged sports enterprise. Right?
Yes.
It's got players, it's got coaches, it's got support staff, it's got logistics, it's got funding, it's got sponsors, it's got results, it's got egos, it's got so much.
And you have to throw in the entire social media aspect of it as well.
And you have to throw in
each of our players now or our creators now are celebrities. So we also have to take that into consideration.
Absolutely.
So let me dial things back a bit just to give you some reference to context. So what we did, so that's one of the reasons why we went to South Korea first, since that's the most mature market. We wanted to learn how things are done in esports over there, because every other esports company that we saw that was trying to do something big in India had nothing to go off of, right? Like they were just trying to learn and better what their predecessors in India did, as opposed to learning from what was happening across the globe, which is why, rather than go headfirst into doing an esports company in India, we wanted to learn from what was happening in a mature market first, because India really hadn't matured, even still hasn't matured. Mobile gaming is still way bigger than PC gaming in India, right? So there's still a lot that we have to go in terms of maturity, but doing that and having our South Korean teams first, then coming to India and having our Counter-Strike and Dota team gave us such an edge on everything that we were doing that from there, probably that was a big reason for our catapult to becoming the number one in the country and the region, in fact, because we could learn from the mistakes of what the Koreans were doing as opposed to what other Indian orgs were doing. Sure. And in fact, funnily enough, the first article that came out announcing our Counter-Strike and Dota teams said that Southeast Asian organization Global Esports sets and announces their Counter-Strike and Dota team. And they didn't even realize that we were doing all this from our garage in Mumbai.
Right.
Because that's all they had seen, right? They had seen our teams perform on an international level in South Korea and in Singapore. And now we were opening teams in Mumbai.
I mean, and it's very consistent with your previous story as well, right? Where you were learning in LA or you're learning at Publicis, for that matter. Let me ask you this, right? What skills do you think did you pick up in the early days, right? And when you were scaling, right? And I want to know specifically skills that go into coaching a successful team, right? Skills that go into turning that team into a business and then charting maybe a 2-year, 3-year, 5-year plan, right? How these 3 things. So first, skills that you picked up to coach the team. Who taught you? I mean, what did you pick up? I know you said you learned it from the Korean teams, but what did you pick up there, right? How did you?
A lot of people ask us what the secret sauce is, that makes these superstars. We always believe that, as per traditional belief, that you need to take superstars into a team and kind of make them, give them the right support and infrastructure for them to perform in like tournaments, and they'll be like they'll go out with a bang. But that's not the truth, right? You need to create the superstars. At least that's what we believed, and that's been our approach. Because
you can't just hire superstars. You have to build them.
And that's been our approach as well, right? That where we want to learn something, we try to. So just let's give you a glimpse of what it is. Where there are like ranks and leaderboards, we go beyond the 500 ranks. We go beyond the 1,000 ranks. See what is that spark. Try to identify what is that spirit, what is the mentality, whether the player is coachable, whether that player itself has the right amount of passion and dedication to convert this into something that is going to become more than anything people have imagined or what that person himself has imagined, right? So that's where it comes. You need to be able to go beyond your existing skill set and okay, this is a star, I'll put him in a team and hope that it's going to work out for one tournament. So you take these 5 different individuals, let's say you're taking a game like Valorant, you take these 5 different individuals who have very diverse attributes and personality traits, but when you put them in a team together, they give each other that right synergy to perform as a team, and that team becomes stronger than the sum of 5, right? And that's where the secret sauce is, where you need to be able to identify those superstars and go on the journey of creating them. And I think Global Esports has been on that center of that, where we create the superstars, we build them, and we just don't hire them, or it's not an easy process. It takes probably sometimes years to make it happen, but because we've been players ourselves, we've seen the other side, we've been athletes, we've taken part in sports when we were younger, because there was no esports that time, right? I think we pretty much played all the sports you can imagine because we wanted to bunk lectures more than anything, but it was for the dream of doing that for esports or for video games. So understanding from that perspective as players, we know what the players would need to make it happen, whether in terms of gear, whether in terms of some basic nutrition, whether in terms of some kind of a format or a structure in their daily lives, or just some kind of a way to focus themselves into and not think about anything else.
Yeah, I think another very important aspect that we do look at is a player's aptitude. At the end of the day, it's not just raw skill and talent that matter. I think the same goes even for cricket. Everyone will very, very widely agree that the 11 people on the cricket team may not be the best 11 that India has to offer, but they are the right combination of 11 that are chosen to represent our country. I think that's what's very important, because it's not necessarily the solo talent that gets people there. People need to realize this is a team game. Just saying that I am the best or I can achieve this alone is absolutely useless in the long term, because these are all team games, right? So we're looking for that attitude. And again, one thing that we have to realize is that this is a very high-paced, high-performing, high-stress job as well, because you are expecting 18-year-olds to perform actions at a split second. It's sometimes they have to react and in milliseconds, right? And they have to be just that much better than their opponents. And it's all in a digital format with fast moving frames and pictures. So they need to have perfect eyesight, they need to have perfect movement, they need to have that perfect attitude, because once they become really good at the game and start performing at an international stage, they're also going to get a lot of social media exposure, right? They can't have things like, they can't have stage fright. They can't go up at a LAN event with 1 million people watching and choke and get nervous. They can't go on to have 1 million subscribers on YouTube and then say something stupid online, right? So they have to be coached and also trained as personalities so that they can have a brand friendly social media presence, along with having the right set of skills and being able to work together as a team. So it's so many layers that need to be built and formed upon each of these individuals. And again, these are not mature adults we're talking about. These are 16-year-old children. So it's extremely difficult to have, the right combination. Almost no child, I would say, has all of these innately. They have to be layered on top, and they have to be built, and they have to be learned. These are all learned components that we that's where we come in as an organization. That's where we feel having a mentor is really important, because mentors are the ones that provide these layers on top of athletes. And unless you have the right mentorship, you're going to go down a very dark path. And because esports athletes, retire at a very young age, at like 24, 25, if you have gone astray very early on, it's difficult to recover and suddenly look at pivoting your career at 25 and then look at, okay, what else can I do? So we also look at providing a long-term roadmap and a future path to all our esports athletes, which is why rather than just looking at roster changes every time an event is over, seeing which player didn't perform, changing them out with another player, it's not something we do. Coming to that's exactly how we build this Valorant roster as well. We are the only Valorant team in India that has had the exact same roster for 1 year. We've not even added a substitute or a sixth. This has been our playing five since we started this team, and this is what we plan to continue. Rather than changing the players, we believe in changing the attitude of the players, having them perform better, work together, fill in each other's deficiencies, and activate their own proficiencies. So that's the entire goal of building this superstar mentality, rather than looking for people that already have it and then just paying above market to get them on board.
Right. I love it. I mean, so well thought through, so many different aspects that you've considered. And obviously that comes with you yourself having been there as a competitive player and then seeing the industry over the last 5 years. Speaking of the industry over the last 5 years, what's exciting for you? I mean, I know it's a massively exciting time for esports right now, but what are the drifts in the industry right now that have you excited, especially from an India perspective? I know globally the situation's massive, but I mean, even when you go to an ESL in India, and I know it hasn't happened the past couple of years, etc., but it's becoming huge, right? Like, it's huge. You see them, even the bring your own computer segment there.
Yes.
It's like, dude, what is this, like TechCrunch Disrupt is happening? What is going on? Right? What got you excited? What are the things that you're looking at and saying, guys, this is it. Now is the moment for us?
So I think one really important aspect that we have seen in especially in the last 2 years with COVID and the pandemic and the lockdown, is that the number of people spending time playing video games has drastically gone up. And also the amount of time that they're spending playing video games has also gone up. So just having that, just factored in leads to there have been more than about 300 million daily active users in some or the other form of game in India, right? Just looking at those numbers is absolutely crazy, because these people are not just playing the game. They are becoming part of the ecosystem, right? They also go and consume content when it comes to following a creator, or they will go and watch some how-to videos to get better at the game, or they will watch their favorite athletes compete in a tournament. So now there's so many ways that they can engage with the game, where earlier all they could do was get in and play the game. Now they can be part of the game in different ways, where they can have skins in the game, they can follow their favorite creator, they can follow and watch the esports progression of their favorite athlete, they can go out and buy merchandise, both digital and physical, of the game, and become so much more evolved. So as Mohit was rightly saying, coming into the Disneyfication of the way things are dealt with in the gaming space as well, where they factor out and have branched out into so many different, kind of outlets for gamers to interact with, where today Netflix, probably I would say Netflix's biggest competitor is not Star or Fox or any other OTT. It's Fortnite. Because if a kid is spending 8 to 12 hours a day playing Fortnite, that's 8 to 12 hours a day they're not spending time watching Netflix.
Yeah, and I think it's always been about, looking at the gaming space as the next big form of entertainment. That's the reason we love playing, video games, because music, yes, it's a passive kind of activity. You just listen to it. You can't interact, or you can only share it when people around you are listening to the music with you together. Same goes for even any kind of cinema, films, or any kind of normal traditional entertainment, right? It's a one-way communication. You're just taking in the information, you're absorbing it. But here's where it gets interesting. We've been gamers all our lives. The reason we love games is that active participation. You're able to interact with the story and kind of build it and be involved in that immersed reality or this world of
and change
fantasy.
The outcome based on your actions.
That is what the future of entertainment is going to be. That is where the gaming and the esports industry is headed, and we want to be on the forefront of it with the content and everything that we're doing to pretty much disrupt this space and create like the next big Disney or something beyond that.
So,
that's where we're going.
So where we see, with gamers, the one good thing about gaming is that with everything else, you have to market and promote and really convince people to use your product or your service, right? With video games, it's not the same. People actively get attracted to it and they want to spend more time playing the game because the worlds are now being created and becoming so immersive. It's, and now of course going into, I know this conversation can lead down a very dark hole, but going into the metaverse and the way things are going with blockchain and NFTs, right? Like we see gaming becoming a very important aspect of what's going to happen in people's lives, where everything is going to be gamified in some way, shape or form, whether casual or competitive. You see apps also doing it. in the forms of say like a Nike or a Fitbit, when they have their apps, they start the competitiveness where you can see how much you run compared to your friends, and you want to run and compete more. It's just gamification of things, right? So people are using the gamified aspects in real life to motivate people to work more. That just goes to say that games work, right? People love playing video games.
For sure. I think everything from learning a language to completing skills to anything, right? Like I think gaming, according to me, and don't take this the wrong way since both of you are in some way filmmakers, film was the art form of the 20th century. Moving images was the art form of the 20th century. 21st century, video games is the art form.
Absolutely.
100%.
Right.
There is no denying it. I mean, sure, Zuckerberg can take his little bit of a metaverse understanding and go in one direction, but the metaverse is much bigger.
Absolutely.
Right? And gamification is at the heart of that metaverse.
Absolutely.
Right?
And it's really, unfortunate what happened in the past 2 years, with the whole pandemic and the world, being kind of distant in a way never before. But it's been the most fortunate time for gamers and, the gaming industry, because this has been the most, safest time for people to connect within a game. And that kind of brought back the social distancing, right? People, parents felt safe when they let their kids go, play on the computer and talk to their friends and chill, because you won't be able to do that the way you would back in the days, right? Probably it's going to take some time. So gaming is that bridge that people needed, and we feel that this digital revolution is going to be a very significant aspect in the history of the world, and gaming is going to be a huge thing that kind of takes it forward.
So I'll tell you what, in 2020 January, if you would have asked me the question of where esports and gaming is going in India, I would have said, probably in the next 10 years, India is going to be one of the largest markets in the space. Today, I can say confidently that number has been cut down to 3 to 5 years. And the lockdown and COVID has played a very important part of it, mostly because it has provided a massive attitude shift in parents, where earlier they would not want their children to spend any time indoors playing video games, and they would say go play outdoors. In lockdown, they didn't really have a choice, where a lot of parents didn't want to give their children unrestricted screen time because all their classes moved over to Zoom and moved online. They had to give their children unrestricted screen access. And a lot of times it also became parents, wanting to just keep their kids busy and said, just play. Don't disturb me because I'm working from home as well. So a lot of opportunities arose and gave children the chance to play games with kind of the time frame that they would not have usually got, whether it was spending time traveling or outdoors or at school. Just the number of hours they had in a day to dedicate to playing games would not have been as much. So we're obviously seeing a screen fatigue expected to happen once things open up and start going back to the way things were before, where people will want to take a break. But even if that does happen, the numbers are so significantly higher that even if a large portion of them quit and never go back to gaming, we're still going to be 3x of what we were before the pandemic. So that's still a number that we can't ignore.
Love it. To round this off, I want to ask you very cliched question.
I love it.
Right. What next?
Oh, how much can we reveal or how much can we say?
I'll let you take this first because I want to answer this in as short as possible.
Yeah, I will give you literally 2 minutes because we're already at an hour mark, and I would love to continue this conversation, but Vishal is sending me messages like, "Band karo, kya chal raha hai?"
No, so I think apart from everything that we're doing on the content, esports, and pretty much in the entire ecosystem of that we're doing in Global Esports to kind of build the brand and work on different revenue streams, and there's a lot of announcements and a lot of things that we want to do. The most exciting thing in the next possible week is our NFT project that we are actually creating this NFT project where just think of all the retro games that you loved, right? Everything that we've grown up. Those video game gods are coming out in the metaverse, and they've entered the metaverse to unite all the, people to play these competitive video games. That's all I can say. I don't think I can say much. But that is something that's happening, and that's going to be very exciting because we want to use this NFT as a way to reach out to our community like we never did before. Because we always had this problem statement, right? The gaming, community is fragmented. There's no one place to find everyone. What can we do to become that bridge or that landing page where everything gaming is, global esports, or we are the bridge for everything that connects you to the gaming world. So that's been our goal and that's our focus. And we're hoping this NFT project takes us one step closer to solving that goal and getting a bigger army this time of 10,000 people. So I think that is exciting and I'm pretty much looking forward to it. I can't talk about much of something that we shot recently. I think there's some speculation and some news, but I'm not going to comment on that. You can take it.
Yeah. So to keep it really short, for us next, we definitely see blockchain technology as being the future of what the digital world is going to be. So global esports is going to be bringing a lot of the metaverse and a lot of the esports world together. And more importantly, I think to summarize everything we've been doing, neither of us are going to rest till we become the world's largest gaming company. I think that's just
that is our goal.
Just a one-liner to summarize what we're doing. We're going to become the world's largest gaming company, and that's all we want to do.
And just to connect back, sorry, I know this might just a minute more, but just to connect back the story, the guy that my elder brother who introduced us to gaming and to make us the gamers we are today, he actually works at King, the company that makes Candy Crush. So if there's anything we need on the publishing side and to make our own game, we have that guy sitting as well. So we can pretty much build the ecosystem of everything gaming and never need anything. Like we can make it happen.
And from what it seems from this conversation, you have all the right skills and all the right attitudes to go ahead and
but
do
still
it.
a long way to learn.
It took a long time to get here.
Always.
But I think we're just getting started.
Yeah.
Always, man. I mean, I enjoyed this conversation far more than I thought I would. And I always think I enjoy conversations. So that's saying a lot. So much to learn from your story. And I'm sure in this hour-long chat that we've had, we've just scratched the surface of how much there is to uncover and to learn from your experience and from your achievements.
Thank you.
How well you complement each other's skills as leadership of global esports, to how deeply you understand the needs of the gamer, the needs of the consumer, the needs of the ecosystem, to how clearly you see what it is that you guys want to do, right? Whether it is when you were starting out or whether it is now. I think you're set for domination. Right?
I think we won't rest until we do. So
yeah, and you have all my best wishes, and I'm sure all my listeners right now are also wishing you all the very best for.
Thank you. So one chant we like to say, if you can also say, it's like G fighting. No matter what happens, you give up in life. There are hurdles. Anything happens. So what is that mantra? If anyone would ask us, it would be G fighting, because no matter what, we'll keep fighting till we complete the level.
Yeah, and you can make like the great Kali and be like G fighting.
That's
a good suggestion. I think we'll take that into consideration.
We can make that happen, I think.
Yeah. Love it, guys. Thank you so much for spending this hour with us talking about your journey and about your ambitions, man. So much to learn, like I said. And I hope you guys had fun too.
Yes,
it was great talking to you. Thank you, everyone, for making this happen, and looking forward to whatever in the future if we collaborate again.
We should. I will have you back for a follow-up episode asking you how far you've reached in your quest for world domination.
Oh, absolutely. So it depends on the timeline of when you call us back. But I'm going to say this now, since this podcast is happening now, FaZe Clan just did a $1 billion IPO. Right. Hopefully the next time you have us on, we're at least on the path to getting closer.
Take my money.
Believe in the NFT. That is a great place to start investing, right?
Yeah.
We'll talk about that offline. You can cut this part.
For sure. That's it on a fantastic episode to bring Gaming Month on Storytellers and Storysellers to a close. If you like this episode, go back, scroll up, check out the other episodes that we've done. We've got some fantastic creators, some fantastic business people from the world of gaming and beyond on the show. Thank you, Mohit and Rishi, for joining us. This is it on this episode. This is me, Vineet Kanabar, saying goodbye.
Hey everybody, it's been a great week on the IVM Podcast Network. On The Habit Coach, Ashton is in conversation with Dre Baldwin, CEO of Work On Your Game Inc. They discuss the athletic mindset and what it takes to be a great athlete. On All Things Policy, Arjun Gargaya speaks to Atish Padi about fantasy sport platforms and Karnataka's online gambling ban. On the Life Manifesto, Zarina decodes the concept of emotional maturity. I wonder what emotionally mature people really do. On Nankari, Sadaf and Archit are joined by author Sudha Menon. They discuss comfort food and Sudha's upcoming book. On Say No to Drama, Chetna cuts through the drama around Instagram posts and comments. Do follow us on social media. We're IVM Podcast on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn. And remember, if you're enjoying this show or any of other shows for that matter, please do tell a friend. And finally, we'd like to thank our sponsors this week, Cred, Bank of Baroda, Quarter, CoinSwitch, Kuber, Slay Coffee, Intel, Kotak Mahindra Bank, and Oxfam India. Thank you so much for making this possible.
Don't you think that if everyone around you is getting smart, you better be smarter? Hey there, I'm the traveling professor Siddharth Deshmukh and I'm back with season 2 of my podcast to make you smarter. Smarter with Sid. What's this season's focus about? Well, it's about 10-minute nuggets that will make you stand out at work. It's time to go from smart to smarter. Tune in every Tuesday and Thursday and become smarter with Sid.